Once you've played Terraria for a while, you'll likely be looking for new and interesting ways to increase the difficulty of the game and really challenge yourself. So what if we did something crazy in a game that's all about powering up? How's it going, crew? This is HappyDays, and today we're going to see if we can beat Terraria without any armor or buffs. Now before we get started, we need to lay out the ground rules so we're all on the same page with this challenge. As the title of this video states, today we're going to try and beat Terraria without using any armor or buffs, so let's break down these two categories. During this playthrough, I can't equip a single piece of armor in any of the 3 armor slots for my character. I can use any weapon or accessory I want and use the Goblin Tinkerer to modify my equipment as needed. An important distinction we need to make right now is the difference between armor you equip and your defense score. Your defense score is the shield icon that appears near your accessories and can be boosted by wearing armor, using buffs, from some accessories, and from modifiers. For example, if you get an accessory with the warding prefix, it will boost your defense score by 4 points. I will likely be focusing purely on damage in this challenge anyway, but I like to be as clear as possible from the start so there's no confusion. I also won't be using any buffs during this adventure. Buffs in Terraria are the blue icons that appear under your hotbar to let you know what buffs you have active. The most common way to get buffs are from potions like Iron Skin or Regeneration, or from placeable objects like Heart Lanterns or Campfires. This also includes mounts, as they have a buff icon. So basically in this challenge, if the item is not armor and it doesn't give you a blue buff icon like life crystals to increase your maximum HP, it can be freely used. The only exception I'm making is using shine potions, which are being used only so you, the viewer, can clearly see what's happening on screen at all times. I'm also adding an accidental buff clause that means if I walk near some sunflowers while traveling on the surface or fall into honey while exploring the jungle, this is clearly not intentional and doesn't count. Health and mana potions actually give you a red debuff icon called Potion and Mana Sickness, and as this is a debuff and not a buff, I am allowed to heal my health and mana this way during the challenge. As always, our challenge will be complete when the Moonlord is defeated for the first time. If you're doing this challenge on mobile, your final boss could be Okram. Finally, I won't be using any major bugs or glitches during this challenge, and any mining and crafting is freely allowed as long as it's not for armor and buffs. With that said, let's get this crazy challenge started. We begin as most people do in Terraria by chopping some trees, crafting some starter weapons, and building some basic NPC housing. The Demolitionist will be an important NPC to get early on, so I can purchase grenades to boost my damage against bosses. Not having armor or buffs is definitely going to make this a hard challenge, so we're going to need to plan our boss order very carefully. I'll start by going after the Queen Bee to get the Bee's Knees or the Beekeeper. Then we'll take on SKELETRON to unlock the dungeon before hard mode, and hopefully that gives us enough weapons for the Wall of Flesh. In hard mode, I'll follow the usual order, starting with the 3 mech bosses, followed by PLANTERA. I think I'll go after FISHRON before GOLEM for a damage boost. Afterwards, I'll tackle the Lunatic Cultist, and then go straight for the Moonlord. After collecting some gel for torches, I head underground to start looting. My main goals are to get max health as soon as possible, as well as plenty of mobility items such as bottles for jumping, boots, and any type of grappling hook. In case you're wondering, I'm playing on a large world in normal mode. Having a large world will give me plenty of chances to find life crystals, and the extra chest should give me the accessories I need. I also check the dungeon to see if a water bolt has spawned near the entrance, as this will help immensely against the Queen Bee, but unfortunately I don't find one and then get eaten by 2 dungeon guardians. It always makes me jump even though I know it's coming. Finally, reforging will be critical in this challenge, so I'll farm some Goblin Scouts to craft the Goblin Battle Standard. This way I'll hopefully find the Goblin Tinkerer soon so I can start powering up. The Goblins are tough without armor or buffs, but the grenades from the Demolitionist help deal big damage. After finding a hive, I prepare a basic arena before smashing the lava. I also make sure to block off any honey pools, as honey is a buff and it's not allowed. After stocking up on grenades for the battle, I return to find the bound goblin waiting in the hive. I'll quickly buy some items from him and the goblin can help me battle the bee, and he'll probably likely die in the process too. As I don't have a water bolt, I'll be using the spiky balls we got from the goblins to get in some extra damage against the queen bee. I also have some jester arrows that I've looted during our adventure, and if I can safely land some grenades, that will get in some nice damage too. This fight is quite dangerous without buffs, as getting poison will stop my natural health regeneration, meaning that this fight is a race against time, but thankfully our mobility items allow us to dodge most of the bee's attacks. After a long battle, we managed to defeat the giant bee, although our new goblin friend died during the fight. I got a bee gun which is super effective against the queen bee, and as all the crafting resources for Abominations are nearby, I fight a few more queen bees to get a good supply of bee nades for the upcoming bosses. With a few queen bees defeated, I've now got a bit of extra cash, so let's head back to base and visit the Goblin Tinkerer and get that workshop I couldn't afford earlier and craft Spectre boots. This is also a great time to talk about reforging for this challenge. You've got a lot of options with your accessories, and one strategy would be to go full warding for an extra 20 defense, but in the true spirit of our no armor challenge, I will eventually go for menacing for maximum damage. But I don't have enough money for perfect modifiers just yet, so I'll take the first decent one that rolls for each item and worry about maxing out my stats later. With all our new bee weapons and a few equipment upgrades, we head to the dungeon at night to take on Skeletron. As usual, I prepared a few platforms in advance to give me the mobility I need to avoid his attacks. I had saved all my bee nades for this battle, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much damage my bee's knees and bee gun were doing, so I decided to save the bee nades for the Wall of Flesh battle. Skeletron was no match for the power of bees, so once it was destroyed, we make our way quickly inside the dungeon. My main goal inside the dungeon is to locate the mechanic, as I might want the option to use traps later on to help with some of the hard mode bosses if I need it. I'll also grab some water candles, as I'll do a bit of farming in hard mode, and even though the water candle actually gives a red debuff icon, the increased spawn rates will be exactly what I need. Hard mode's going to be really tough without armor, so I'm definitely going to want to find a cobalt shield for the knockback immunity. Any extra loot we find will simply sell to help fund the reforging that I'll definitely need later to complete this challenge. Before we fight the Wall of Flesh, I'm going to set up a huge mob farm in the cavern layer. This will be a great source of loot to help me earn money quickly and give me access to a wide variety of mob drops at the start of hard mode. After totally not blowing myself up with dynamite and bombs, I head down to the underworld to get ready for our Wall of Flesh battle. As I can't use water walking potions to stand on the lava, I make a standard runway and unleash all my bee weapons against the giant flesh monster. Bee nades are extremely effective against the hungries, and once they're defeated, the bees will focus solely on the wall's eyes and mouth. I do my best to dodge the laser attacks, and soon enough the wall is defeated and we're rewarded with a ranger emblem, which is sure to come in useful. Now that we're in hard mode, I'll need to power up really quickly if I'm going to stand a chance to beat this challenge. Some of my first goals are to get leaf wings from the witch doctor and get some better weapons so I can deal tons of damage to the mech bosses to make up for my lack of buffs and armor. Unfortunately, my character has no money from all the reforging I've been doing, so I'm going to need to test out the farm I created earlier to earn some cash. My farm is designed to help maximize mob spawn rates while keeping my character fairly safe. I've planted some jungle grass seeds underneath to help further boost spawn rates, and I've got basic dart traps wired up to help get mimics moving when they spawn off screen. We also find the wizard NPC, which is really nice, but friendly NPCs actually reduce mob spawn rates, so if he could, jump in the lava, that would be really much appreciated. Thanks, wizard! About 20 minutes later, you can see I've added a timer to help automate the mimic dart trap. I've also earned almost 2 platinum and have a chest full of loot. We make a quick stop by the jungle to our old Queen Bee arena to visit the witch doctor I moved there. The leaf wings will give me some much needed mobility for our upcoming boss fights. Then I quickly cruise through some of the underground hallow to pick up a few souls of light. The area doesn't have a huge spawn rate, but that's actually okay because my character's still quite weak, so it gives me time to fight the enemies one-on-one. Back on the surface, I craft some keys of light and summon some hallowed mimics. I've also got 2 special chests for those evil buffs and armor I've collected in our adventure, so all the NPCs can laugh at them. A Daedalus Stormbow is the best weapon for when you need to deal tons of damage fast, and since I need to destroy the mech bosses as quickly as possible, this is a great option. Holy arrows are a natural pairing with the Daedalus Stormbow, but without Spelunker potions, finding hard mode ores to craft them will be difficult. So instead, I set up a nice fishing spot near my base and use the water duplication trick to fill it up. If you didn't know, you can buy the Mechanics Rod during a Waning Crescent moon, which gives a nice boost of 30% fishing power. It's going to be a slow process, but I'll eventually get enough crates to get all the hard mode ore I need, and this way I can sell any extra loot for even more reforging. I take the mechanical worm we got from our farm, plus a crafted mechanical skull and eye, and head to the desert to challenge the mech bosses. For these battles, I've zoomed out because without armor or buffs, I need to keep as far away from these bosses as possible. For our arena, I've simply made 2 long platform runways so I can spend most of my time running in one direction and hopefully avoiding most of the boss's attacks. Thankfully, the combination of our Daedalus Stormbow, Magic Quiver, Ranger Emblem, and Holy Arrows makes short work of the mech bosses. We're strong enough now to keep plowing through bosses, but I'll swing by base quickly to craft an upgraded pickaxe. I've got some spare material, so I'll craft a stack of light discs for some extra damage. I return to our spawn point in the jungle and start making an arena by throwing sticky explosives around, and since I don't need to farm any of Plantera's drops, I'll just make it a rough arena for the one battle. I find a bulb nearby and slowly lure Plantera back to our arena. I realize quickly that my arena is probably a little on the small side as I'm taking quite a few hits, but a good strategy is simply to fly around in circles around Plantera to keep it in the same place. I do get quite low on health during this battle, but I manage to take Plantera out before I die, and we get a nice grenade launcher and a temple key for our troubles. After reforging my grenade launcher, I make a quick detour to the dungeon to look for the elusive Bone Lee. Bone Lee drops the tabby and black belt I need to craft Master Ninja Gear. I also quickly realize that I can damage myself with the grenade launcher and quickly die, which I hope you all enjoy. So after a long walk back, I pretty much immediately die again, and as I look at the death message, I start to think that I may need to set up a spawn point here. That said, I do get tons of loot, including a sniper scope from a skeleton sniper. This gives a whopping extra 10% to damage and critical strike, and would be useful if I decide to use the Vortex Beater against the Moonlord. So after dying about 38,000 times and mining out half the dungeon, I eventually get the items I need and head back to base to craft some Master Ninja Gear. After exploring around the jungle and collecting a little chlorophyte ore, I stumble across the temple entrance. My light discs and grenade launcher actually work really well in the temple, and the wire cutters help me disable the traps as I explore. Currently my strongest weapon against Golem is my grenade launcher, but that's only going to get me killed in the confined chamber, so before fighting Golem, I make my way to the ocean and challenge Duke FISHRON. I set up some basic platforms for FISHRON, and with the help from my Master Ninja Gear, I just have to focus on avoiding FISHRON's attacks while keeping my Daedalus Stormbow aimed at him. At this point in the challenge, I'm really starting to notice the lack of buffs and armor, in particular the lack of extra damage you get from armor sets, and the regeneration and bonus damage from buff potions. It tends to make boss fights last a lot longer, which in turn means you're likely to take more hits. It's a really close fight, and in the dying moments of the battle, FISHRON is finally defeated, and I die about 1 second later, which is so typical, but at least I have my own spawn point right here. So I go back and check the loot, and we got a tsunami, which is amazing, and that's actually going to be really useful against Golem. I decide to battle another FISHRON quickly, and the tsunami does a lot more damage than the Daedalus Stormbow, so it's a much quicker battle, but just as he dies, of course I do the sensible thing, and fly straight into a Sharknado. After respawning again, I check the loot, and we get a Razorblade Typhoon, which is exactly what I need for the pillars. It's time to go pick on Golem now. Now that I have the tsunami, I can unleash a flurry of holy arrows straight on top of Golem, and there's not much you can do about it. Of course, just like in the FISHRON fight, I have to try and minimize taking damage, so the strategy is to focus on the fist when it's safe, and then move around when Golem gets closer. Once the fists are destroyed and the head is floating around the arena, I just need to burst down Golem's body and we win. This is a fairly easy fight with our equipment, so I decide to use all my lizard power cells to farm more golems to earn some more money for more reforging. We're getting closer to our Moonlord battle, but I still only have a measly 400 HP, so I decide to crash through the jungle for a while and see if I can find some life fruit. Without a Spelunker potion, I likely won't get to max health, but even finding a few might be the difference between life and death against the final boss. Next, we make our way to the dungeon to challenge the lunatic cultists. I quickly use the other life fruits I found and start the battle. You'll notice I've zoomed out for this battle because bosses are starting to deal tons of damage and I really need to start focusing on dodging if I'm going to survive. I use a combination of my Razorblade Typhoon, Possessed Hatchet and Tsunami to deal damage whilst doing my best not to spawn additional cultists. By taking the fight slow and not getting greedy trying to do extra damage, I manage to defeat the cultists and unleash the Celestial Pillars. I swing past our base to purchase some steampunk wings from the steampunker for a slight upgrade, and then we make our way to the Vortex Pillar. Thankfully, the Vortex Pillar has spawned at our old mech boss arena, so I've got plenty of room to move around and a spawn point ready if I die. After a few minutes, the shield is down and we destroy the Vortex Pillar. I get enough fragments to craft both the Phantasm and the Vortex Beater, but we'll save the upgrades until we beat the next 2 pillars. The Nebula Pillar goes well enough. I do die once, but as long as I keep my distance, the Razorblade Typhoon makes short work of the mobs and the Tsunami is great for mowing down the pillars. I set up a spawn point outside the Solar Pillar. I mean, this pillar can be tough even with full armor and buffs, so I'm expecting the worst. I use the platform trick to slowly make my way into the pillar zone, but immediately get bombarded by hordes of enemies. I die quite a few times, and all I can do is hide on my little platform spamming razor blades, trying desperately to stay alive, and although I die a few more times, I eventually destroy the pillar. So how on earth am I going to defeat the Moonlord with no armor, no buffs, and no mounts with only my healing potions to keep me alive? I need to increase my move speed somehow, and there is a way I can do it without buffs, and that's by using asphalt blocks, but that's going to require tons of stone blocks and gel. So I grab a few sticks of dynamite and head underground and start exploding things. Dynamite is a great way to quickly collect heaps of stone, and I even find a slime statue in a treasure room. I keep collecting stone until I accidentally blow myself to pieces and decide to return to the surface. Making a gel farm with a slime statue is a piece of cake. Simply craft a 1-second timer from a gold watch and wire, and then make a small stone box for the slime statue to live in. Pour in some lava and stand underneath and wait for the gel to roll in. About 3 years later, we finally have enough gel, but no slime stuff, sadly. I buy a Blendermatic from the Steampunker and craft our Phantasm and Vortex Beater. Then it's time to craft lots and lots of asphalt. I decide to start the runway from our desert spawn box. I have several thousand asphalt, so I'm going to make a single, insanely long runway that hopefully will keep me out of harm's way against the Moonlord. I was brainstorming a way I might be able to use my heart generator design during the Moonlord battle to help top up my HP, but without a heart reach potion, it will be difficult. A design I'm going to try is my regular heart generator design, but putting it high above the arena with a conveyor belt that will not allow mobs to escape, but will transport the hearts out as they spawn. If I make the conveyor long enough, then hopefully the spiky balls will despawn before they make it to the end of the belt and hurt me. I think I'm also going to need the help of homing clarified bullets against the Moonlord, so I go smash some demon altars to spawn hard mode ores in my world. I only need 30 titanium ore, and they usually spawn just above the underworld. This also gives me another excuse to quickly run through the jungle to pick up some more clarified ore. I'll also grab any loot and life fruits I bump into for some last minute cash and extra HP. After grabbing a quick hellforge from the underworld, I make a final visit to my base to craft my new ammo and make sure all my equipment is reforged to its best potential, and then with everything prepared, it's time to take on the final pillar. As you can see, I've zoomed out again in preparation for our upcoming Moonlord battle. Like with the Lunatic Cultist, I'm going to need all the warning I can get to avoid its attacks. I make my way into the Stardust Zone, and to my delight, I find that the Stardust Pillar is playing hide and seek, trying to bury itself in the sand. So while I'm trying to fend off hordes of mobs, I also throw bombs like crazy in the direction of the pillar to try and free it from its sandy prison. Many bombs later, with the barrier down, I YOLO at the pillar with my Phantasm, but I am not waiting for the fragments, guys, because I can't afford to take damage with my non-existent regen, and I'll need all of my HP for the Moonlord. I make my way back to my spawn point and get on the asphalt runway and wait for impending doom. My strategy for the Moonlord is to focus on the forehead eye as much as possible while slowly dealing damage to its hands. I get hit by an early phantasmal death ray, but I do my best to remain calm and focus on evenly destroying the eyes, so they all die about the same time. Once the core is open, I've got to run for it. With 3 true Eyes of Cthulhu spamming attacks at me, I'll be dead in seconds if I try to stand my ground. I keep running and dashing and trusting my chlorophyte bullets are hitting their mark. The Moonlord quickly catches up to me, and just as I'm starting to get low on health, it starts exploding, and we know we've achieved our goal. We've beaten Terraria without any armor or buffs. I totally underestimated just how much armor and buffs make a difference in Terraria, and this challenge was definitely tougher than I expected. That said, it was really fun, and I totally recommend you give it a try if you're looking for a new and exciting way to play Terraria. Do you have any other challenges you'd like to see me try? Let me know in the comments below. I had so much fun making this video, and if you enjoyed it too, please let me know by smashing that like button and consider subscribing to see more fun videos like this. And here's the most important part as always, you'll stay happy and I'll see you soon. This is Happy Days signing out. See ya!